Good evening. Welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, Supermac and Gibbo. It's Thursday night and smiling faces tonight, lads. Since we last got together, Newcastle United, of course, faced Manchester United at the weekend and came up trumps with a wonderful home performance, 2-0. And then last night, wow, not the best performance, but 5 goals. And Malcolm, how many times have we been saying in talkings, on live, out and about, we've all been saying that somebody somewhere is going to cop a hiding. It should have been Man United at the weekend. It wasn't. It was West Ham last night.
Right. Well, this was only the second hiding that Newcastle have meted out. And the first one was against Brentford, if memory serves.
That's correct.
Yeah. And we've got Brentford coming up on Saturday. So I wouldn't think they were too happy to see that result over at West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, what did you make of the performance last night? I mean, we've talked about goals, Malcolm. We've wanted goals, we've craved goals, and last night we got 5 of them.
Yeah, I felt there was some real purpose. The performance perhaps wasn't overall the quality performance that Newcastle produced against Man United, but they were quite cutthroat in the way that they saw the weakness in West Ham. They went for the spaces and the gaps and all the while, and I sat there thinking, this is the kind of results that Newcastle should have been getting earlier in the season. It's all been by 1 goal, and I've been dying to see Newcastle play with a 2-goal lead or more. And last night they did, and I thought they were absolutely fabulous. Not as good a performance as Man United, but they didn't need it to be a good performance. What they did was they just concentrated on their finishing, I think. But going back to Manchester United, I thought that was one of the best Newcastle United team performances that I've seen, and I was sort of trying to come up with something that was similar, and I went back to the Barcelona game. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but I thought it was the kind of performance that we haven't seen since Barcelona. And what year was that, John? Can you remember?
That's going back an awful long time.
Yeah,
it was just after the Entertainers. That it was when
97.
We got who was manager? We had Dalglish, I think.
Yes, that's right.
And we did. You're right, Malcolm. But yet again, in that game, we were terrific for it was a bit like the Man City game. The Man City game earlier this season. For an hour, we were sensational. We were 3-0 up against Barcelona, and then they came back like a train. And then the last half hour scored twice, and we were hanging on, and we got a 3-2, one of the greatest results in our history. But it was a bit like Man City. We were 3-1 up against Man City.
That's right.
And then it was 3-3. It didn't get the 3-3. It only got the 3-2.
Yes.
But this was 90 minutes against Manchester United.
Right. It was. Just going back to the Man City game, you couldn't criticise Newcastle for losing the lead, because Man City were just absolutely, unbelievably unplayable in those last 20 minutes or so.
I think what you said there, Malcolm, about the 2 games we've just seen since we were last on air is absolutely true. There were 2 very contrasting games for me.
Yes.
Because the great performance was Man U. Well, from 1 minute to 90 minutes, we were exceptional. We bossed the midfield absolutely totally. They had a lot of flaky characters. They didn't like it. When it wasn't going their way, they didn't like it. And what are you doing with a captain like Fernandes? We've got the proper Bruno. Bruno Fernandes, I mean, he's like a well-smacked bum, isn't he? I mean, all he does is whinge and look as if
Oh,
the world
doesn't he
ends,
just?
doesn't he? I mean, you know,
Oh,
if I hated life as much as him, I would cut my throat and get out of
yeah,
life.
absolute crybaby on everything.
Totally. But that was the outstanding performance. Then we went the other way and got the outstanding result. Now, I must say, because we could see it with our eyes, I wish we played West Ham every week because their defending was absolutely frightening. I mean, Cocky Leaky Juniors would have scored 5 against them. But we did go on and score them, and that was the terrific thing. And for me, the whole thing was really epitomized. They made mistake after mistake. On every goal, bar perhaps a fifth one, you can point fingers to, you know, that's something that happened that West Ham did horrendously. On the first goal, they give away a corner. Can you believe the guy that gave away the corner? There wasn't anybody within 50 yards of him, and he heads it out for a corner. And we score from the corner. On the second one, Joe Linton could bend his run and a straight ball between two centre halves took them out, and we were 2-0 up. I mean, Moyes is supposed to be a defensive coach, for God's sake. If he's a defensive coach, send for Rafa Benitez. I can get the job done properly, because he didn't produce. And the third one, straight after half time, was comical, where the guy was caught on the ball from Fabianski coming up. And the fourth one, when Isak scored, I mean, the goalkeeper was directing traffic. You know, it was all there. Off you go and have a little free shot at goal. Like, I mean, it was absolutely nonsense. But what I would say is that while they give away goals, for me, they give away goals because we panicked them. They were frightened of us. Our energy in our play and our high press meant they never could settle. And when they couldn't settle, defenders don't want the ball off the keeper. The keeper just wants to get rid quick to a defender. It's your ball. And the typical example was they haven't got back into it, in theory, at 2-1 just before half time with the header. You expect them to come out and really give a go at this at the start of the second half to try to rescue the game. Now, yes, the mix-up between the centre-half and the goalkeeper, 22 seconds into the second half, was an awful mix-up. But you know why we scored? Because Murphy was high-pressing.
Yes.
If that had been Antonio at the other end, he would have stood there.
Yeah, I thought Murphy had a terrific game. In fact, two terrific games.
He had a terrific game amongst a lot of people that had a good game, but he did do. But not only did he high press and create the goal out of nothing, but he wasn't a glory boy. Having got the ball, he could have gone to try to finish himself from a tight angle, and the odds are it might well have been saved. He rolled it across the goal for a centre forward to score a centre forward's goal into an open net. Yeah. Terrific. Well done, Murphy. He didn't
absolutely. And can I just say another well done? And I think that people might faint on this one, but well done.
I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this.
I thought they were the two best games that I've seen him play.
Who?
I was
Hold on, it's a problem with my headset.
You know what? I had a little note here. The double M, Maxi and Mac, and have a word about it. Because, but being serious for a minute though, and it's a good point, Malcolm, and I'm glad you brought it up. What we've been asking for, and in the main, you've been asking for, Malcolm, which is right. You say, put your goals on the table, put your assists on the table.
Yes.
Now, in this game, in these two games, when you win, the crucial goal is almost certainly the first one, because that opens the match. Now, on the first one against Manchester United, he produced the assist with a header, by the way. When was the last time it was a header? With a header that was put in by Willock, and then the ball across for the header by Wilson for our first one down there was a terrific ball across. And what I've noticed with him in these two games, and not before, is first of all, he's suddenly buying into the team ethic. and the pennies suddenly
Yes,
drop.
he is.
I'm a team player. I'm not an act on my own. I'm a team player now.
Right.
And the other thing is, I felt, Malcolm, particularly at West Ham, on a couple of occasions, and certainly the one he made for Wilson, he got his head up when he was on the ball and then picked the guy out.
Absolutely.
And that's what's
Absolutely,
been
John.
missing in his game.
Yeah, and he was looking all the time. He was looking for the next ball that he could play, but also with him, he mixed his game up. It wasn't the same run it into the corner, and then turn around and come back and try and beat the same man for a second time. That he was mixing his game up. And that meant that they didn't know how to defend against him.
Yeah.
Because was he going to go left? Was he going to go right? Was he going to go across the pitch or down the line? It was they couldn't read him, and of course he then, as you just mentioned, that he got into that attacking position where he was able to knock it back across, and we scored a goal from it.
Yeah, I think
he hasn't been getting into those positions all season. So all of a sudden, I think that the penny has dropped, and he's realised that if he mixes his game up, he can be a sensational player. Well done, him. Both games.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of good performances last night. I thought both centre forwards, Wilson, when he was in, two goals and played like the centre forward we know he is. Isaac, when he come on, scores, looks a centre forward. Both our wide players, Murphy and Maxi, did terrific, I thought.
Yes.
Bruno was Bruno. We stopped talking about Bruno, haven't we? Because
he was man of the match for me last night.
Oh, we know that high standard, Steve. We know that absolute high bar is so high. We just expect him to do it, and he does. He bossed the Manchester United game in midfield, and he bossed the Hammers. And he was in against Declan Rice, and he was in against his big mate at the Hammers, and he ran the show on his own. And you know what? We've got to say, I've got to say that in Eddie Howe's defence, he made two huge calls on that game at West Ham when he decided to start Wilson and start Joe Linton. Because we had won against Manchester United with our best display of the season, and yet he pulls the centre forward out, Isaac, who's been getting rave notices game after game recently. He pulls him out and plays Wilson, and admitted before the game in the pre-match interview that was just a decision he made. There was no physical reason for doing it. Like, he didn't pretend Isaac had a little knock, etc., etc. It was slightly easier with Willock because Willock had a bit of a knock. We wondered if he had a hamstring or not. So it was easier to bring Joe Linton in. But when Willock had been training, and when he come on, he didn't look as if he really had an injury at all. I think his leg might have seized up, etc., as it can in the game, or have a dead leg, as opposed to it being a hamstring. But they were two massive decisions. And what happened? Wilson scores 2, and Joe Linton scores 2. So, you know, there were big decisions, especially the centre-forward one. And yet they both come off. But what is terrific for me as well, guys, when we look at the current Newcastle situation in both of the games we're talking about, but let's take West Ham. Newcastle now have a bench where after an hour, they can bring people off and put people on like Isaac, like Joe Willock, and like Anthony Gordon. When did we last have a bench that was capable of doing that late in the game? They're 3 players, quality players, who have a right to think they could be starters. Isaac, Willock, and Gordon could be starters, and we've got them on the bench to bring them on. What's a great thing to have up your sleeve, a bench like that. I mean, not so long ago, guys, our bench included Paul Dummett and Jamal Lewis. Now, they were never going to start as long as the A1 goes all the way down to London. But they had to be on the bench because we couldn't get 9. Now we've got people on the bench that we're talking about like that. You know, we're 2 biggest signings financially, £60 million Isaac and 40 million, and Willock at 20 million and Gordon at 40 million. That's 120 million's worth we brought on in the second half. Terrific. Sure. Absolutely terrific.
Yes, absolutely. And they can come on and change the game. They've got that ability.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. So, you know, there are options there now. There's no question about that. And there's options to change the starting lineup if you want to, which is what he did at West Ham. But with those 2 changes, because and they become justified. But when you've got quality like that, you can do things like that.
Definitely. Botman as well. I mean, I've just pre-recorded the Amigos for tomorrow night, and one of the lads said Botman, it was George, in fact, George said Botman could probably play at Newcastle now, probably for the next 8 to 10 years. You know, if you know, it often doesn't work out like that, but he's such a young lad and he's just learning game by game. And that back 4 really is, you know, it's a strong back 4. I often think that we don't really know how well Pope can play, Malcolm, because the back 4 is that good. They all do their jobs. They all get stuck in. Gary Neville said it at the weekend. You know, the back 4, they know what they're doing. They're organised. They're looking over their shoulder. They're fighting for each other. And it's the best defence I personally have seen as a Newcastle fan in my years since 1983-84 when I started supporting Newcastle.
The improvement in players at the back has been quite immense over the past 18 months, and I think a lot of it has got to do with the constant talking of Trippier. He's talking all the time to them, and he's getting the line right, so that they're getting pushed up, and I think that he really has made such a difference to the defence. And of course, how long has he got to go? He's 32 years of age. How long can he keep going? But I have a feeling that they've marked him to go into the coaching squad.
It's interesting because the defence, I mean, statistics alone tell us how good the defence has been, because it's the best in the Premier League by a million miles. 20 goals let in 28 games. There's nobody that can get anywhere near that. But before all 3 of us take off for the moon, I would just like to tie our ankles down a little bit to the bedstead and keep our feet vaguely near the ground. I did feel in the match down at West Ham that it's slowly becoming a game too far for Dan Burn. And for me, he's got the heart the size of a frying pan. He will never let the club down. We'll love him. He's one of ours because he was a fan before he was a player. He is invaluable to this club. But he's a centre-half. And he's got an hell of a time. Forgive the pun here, you'll get it in a minute. He's got a hell of a time at the moment for 2 reasons. He's lanky and his lack of pace. When he plays on the wing, they almost scored in 22 seconds, and it was put down as a Bruno on goal because he deflected it onto the post. We almost went down because Byrne got scorched by Bowen on the wing. He got scorched. And I tell you what, he got scorched from the halfway line and he was running back. And I said straight away when I was sitting watching it, he may as well not run back. He's not going to catch him.
Sure, but the problem is, John, that Target, who would replace Byrne, is actually slower than Burn.
I don't think the Titanic turning in the Tyne would be slower, but but I take your point. And by the way, I'm not having a go at Dan Burn. First of all, I think he is wonderful for the club, and secondly, he's playing out of position, for goodness sake. He doesn't think he's a left back. He just tactically fits in perfectly, as you mentioned in the past, Malcolm, with Trippier getting on his bike on the other side. He can tuck in and he becomes the third centre half. Tactically, he's perfect. But I think he struggled all night with that bone. Honestly, he got done on the pace on the right-hand side more than a couple of times. And Anthony, who plays for Manchester United, if he wasn't such a show pony whinger, his pace was early on burned twice, but he just packed it. Same thing happened in the note down there. He just then stacks his hand because he's got a heart the size of a pea, not a frying pan. But it's a very small point. But let's put it another way. If we don't get an upgrade on Burn at left back next season and we start going to Bayern Munich and Barcelona and Real Madrid, we'll be in trouble, mate, against world-class wingers. And that's not against Burn because he's very valuable to the squad. He's terrific this season. Let him carry on this season, but let him fight for a centre-half's position next season. And let's get a fullback who is, like we have Trippier on one side, let's get a real class one on the other side. Maybe Kieran Tierney's the answer on the other side. But certainly if I was talking, there was Jamal Lewis, and I don't want to be either of them, I'd be wondering how the heck who's supposed to be an orthodox left back, can I get in the side for a left-sided Gray's Monument? But, you know...
He just isn't good enough.
Target.
Isn't good enough at all. No,
Jamal Lewis. Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. But anyway, we don't want to stick on something negative.
No, definitely not. I tell you what, there was an
interesting.
Of course it is, yeah. But look, you've given praise where praise is due, and that's what we do on this show. I think there's been some great performances in the last few games, and Newcastle could have gone the other way after the cup final defeat, but didn't. They've found it within themselves, and Eddie Howe has found it within the squad to refocus, reorganize, and get those results. And then Newcastle looking favourites at this moment in time, to get that, to get a Champions League place, which would be fantastic.
If we could have played the League Cup final now, we would have won the League Cup.
Yeah, sadly, yeah.
Yes. It just happened in that little dip we had in our form. And it's going to happen over a long season to every side. Unfortunately, our little dip coincided with the League Cup. If we played the League Cup now, we would tuck Manchester United up. There's absolutely no question about that. We just played them at the wrong time. But hey, our moment will come to win trophies. We're third top of the league with having lost the least number of games, having the best defence in the league, and we're suddenly scoring goals. We'd won three games, scoring 2 in each of those games, and then we scored 5 last night. So, the pitch is very healthy, and long may it stay like that. And bear in mind that we're talking about this bench and having good players on it, like Isaac and Willock and Gordon. And there's Almiron to come back as well, who's still technically the top scorer at the moment, and so he's having an extra special season. There's him to come back for the run-in, because I'm talking squad here, not team. There's almost players who, out wide, we've got a few players we can, in the 2 wide positions, we've got, Sam Maximum and Almiron on one side, and we've got Murphy and... Joe Linton can play out there, and Gordon can play out there. All of a sudden, we've got wide players. We've got quite a few wide players, as well as 2 centre forwards who are scoring goals. I mean, Wilson's got 10 now, and Isaac's got 7. I mean, we didn't used to have that. When we had centre forwards, we had Chris Wood, who I think once got 2. Or was it 1? Well, anyway, he got 1 or 2, whichever it was. And
important goals.
We just with different strength. Last season, Almiron scored 1 goal. He's got 11. Yeah. He's been missing recently. You know, I mean, we've got a different balance to the team. And hopefully it'll get even better. And that's possible, lads, although we can't believe it at the moment. It'll get even better in the summer when we get more strength and depth. But I honestly believe that we will qualify for the Champions League. And I had said that when we were 5th, when we were re-emerging like we are at the moment. Because
I think the Tottenham game will be a decider, won't it?
Yeah, yeah. But they're flaky like Manchester United.
Sure, they are.
They're capable of getting very good results, but they're flaky. They don't like it up them, as they used to say on the show. You know, if the going is not their way, then oh dear me, we feel. I mean, how can you have Song and Kane and be so negative?
Could I ask you, lads, what you thought of the the interviews after the Manchester United game, Malcolm? Did you hear Luke Shaw and Ten Hag? I mean, I've watched them back a couple of times, and I just felt that they didn't give the credit that Newcastle deserved. I mean, I understand that they probably felt like a rabbit in the headlights, and you know that they've come off the back of a game where they were completely outplayed. It could have easily been 5-0 on Sunday. I just felt that there wasn't the respect given to Newcastle. Instead, concentrating on their deficiencies and looking at their, this shouldn't happen to Manchester United. They shouldn't be more passionate than us. They shouldn't be more. And I just felt, it's an we were beaten by the better team, for God's sake.
Yeah, it's an arrogance that's lived a long, long time at Manchester United. And it runs through the dressing room and into the manager's office, and it's sort of handed on from one regime to another.
I mean, it's very insulting.
They've always been like it.
Yeah, it's very insulting to suggest Newcastle just won because of our passion. We had a lot more passion than they did, admittedly, and that is a terrible condemnation of theirs. Because they have far too many big names when it's not going well, it's stack their hand. There's absolutely no question. And Luke Shaw went around like a headless chicken in the end. He wasn't far short of being sent off. So he should take a look at himself, not just a look at everybody else in his team. But it is degrading not to talk about the quality Newcastle had. Newcastle bossed the midfield. The 3 midfield players, Bruno, Willock, and Sean Longstaff, absolutely bossed Manchester United. There's absolutely no question about that. We had the better players all over the field, but you know what? It just shows that they don't do the homework on the opposition. They felt Newcastle played above themselves. That was one of the expressions. No, they didn't. Look at the league table. We've only lost 3 all season, for goodness sake. How many have you lost, Manchester United? You know, it just means that you're so inward looking, you're so up your own backside that you don't realize how good some of the opposition are. And that's great. If you want to come in with that sort of attitude to play us, we'll take that, because we'll take your trousers down and give you a nice little smacking.
on that, we're going to go to the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's, handmade in Cumbria. These sauces are really hot stuff. You can order them by emailing info@mrvickys.co.uk or by telephoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to Neil and the guys at Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the subscribe button tonight. It is free. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. If you want to join the channel, hit join. There's 3 different tiers. Pick the one that suits you and help support the channel financially. If you want to pay a one-off membership fee of £25 and get these goodies: a scarf, a pen, a cup, and entry into the monthly draw. Then go to NUFC Matters and look for membership pack. Failing that, get your smartphone and put it over the QR code and it will take you straight there. We're also a podcast and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean and other podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make a virtual donation today at the Matchday Bucket, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and you can make a deposit today. Don't forget to enter the Shearer raffle. There's 150 tickets, £1 per ticket, and you can win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. If you have a look on our website, we've also got a vast range of mugs, t-shirts, cups, and whatever else takes your fancy. The Isaac t-shirt is proven popular this month, $16.99 plus delivery from nufcmatters.com. Don't forget as well, we do a range of events over the course of the year. We have Peter Beardsley, an up-close and personal evening at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Limited tickets remain, 25th of April. Get them now from Surf Cafe, tynemouth.co.uk or from ticketweb.uk. There's also an evening with Peter Beardsley on May the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and you can get tickets from newcastlelegends.com. and tickets are £50. Don't forget our end of season do takes place 27th of May, 7 o'clock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that one are a tenner, and nufcmatters.com is where you can get your tickets for that. In June, Thursday the 1st of June to be precise, Rob Lee will be at Louis Liquor Store in the Big Market in Newcastle, and tickets for that are available direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford takes place the next evening on Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. This is a charity event and tables are of £10, £700 and you can book them by contacting Natalie at heelandtoe.org.uk or visiting their website. In July, Gavin Peacock is in Newcastle on July the 10th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that are available from nufcmatters.com. And he also takes an evening with at the Surf Cafe in Tynemouth on the 11th of July. So get your tickets direct from the venue for that one as well. And if you're a boxing fan, the Night of Champions, Ricky Hatton, Frank Bruno, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe takes place at the Fed. And that will be taking place on the 16th of June. More dates to be added. Tickets from all those events, www.goldstarpromotions.co.uk. Question for Gibbo from Barry. He says, Steve, I understand if you don't have time, but it's been bugging me since Gibbo mentioned a reason behind Keegan leaving was to do with John Hall and his plans for seating changes. I've always wanted to know why Keegan left. Can he explain?
Yeah, it's interesting. Kevin said it was because it was the technicality, when we were going to go into a public company rather than a limited company where he felt there would be accountants above us that would be jerking strings instead of being able to have a one-on-one situation with the chairman. He didn't like that. From Newcastle United's point of view, they'd always said with Kevin when they had him as a player and then as a manager, I mean, he used to, a lot of people, bless him. I mean, Terry McDermott is a huge pal of mine, and I love him to death. And a lot of people wondered what he did when at Newcastle, not when Kevin was playing, but when Kevin was manager. And Kevin famously called him his gopher. Go for this, go for that, go for the other. He certainly wasn't a coach, but he was a terrific court jester. He was a great tub thumper. He looked after the lads, etc., etc. But one of the jobs he did, whenever KK spit the dummy out and done a runner, having said to the board, I'm leaving and I'm not coming back because the wind's blowing in the wrong direction this particular Wednesday afternoon, Daffy would go after him and persuade him that he should come back and bring him back. And unknown to the public, because a lot of it didn't get out, and naturally, nor should it, because a lot of clubs don't get out. But I knew a lot of it because I was a member of the Magpie group. And quite a few times, Kev done a runner and was brought back, and Newcastle had said, we've had enough, and they held a private meeting and said the next time he resigns, like not on paper, the next time he says, I'm off, I don't like the brochure, we don't chase him anymore. So they actually had a piece of paper which said, which was kept in the drawer of Freddie Fletcher, which was when he says I resign, Freddie get it out the drawer and put it in front of him and say, well, just sign that saying you resign, Kevin, and that's the end of that. So they'd almost had enough of what was going on. KK didn't like the change in the format of Newcastle. I can understand both people. But you know what? I'll tell you something. I think both people, in hindsight, after it was all over, wished it hadn't been. Because Kevin Keegan never had a better job as a manager than he had at Newcastle United. It wasn't better at Fulham, it wasn't better at Manchester City, and it certainly wasn't better with England. So the best job he had as a manager was here. And he only appreciated the amount of scope he was given here when he went elsewhere and wasn't given the same amount of scope. And then famously come back under Mike Ashley and found out what we all found out, what a disaster that was. And Newcastle, it can be argued that until Eddie Howe, who will do it, does better than finishes second top of the Premier League, we haven't had a more successful manager than Kevin Keegan in terms of the league, not in terms of winning something, in terms of the league, because we've got two successive Premier League runners up. And I know on the second one, Dalglish was in charge by the end of the season, but Kevin had got through the first half of the season, and it was all set up, and you just had to keep the show on the road. So I think with hindsight, both people appreciated each other more after you've left than when you're there. But I know one or two of my mates that appreciate the misses after they left rather than when they were there. Sometimes that can happen in life. You can have a wonderful marriage, which was Newcastle and Keegan, and all of a sudden somebody gets a pet lip and it's over. And afterwards you think, that wasn't a very clever thing to have done. With hindsight, that's the best time I've had in my life. And I think Kevin, who's a lovely, lovely lad, I think he appreciates the time he had at Newcastle as a manager. Not for the owners, for the fans, for everything that was built here. It was terrific because, believe you me, the start in the building up of the entertainers had the exact same buzz as this has got,
Yeah, you're not wrong. Question for Malcolm. Steve Middlemas says, Malcolm, what's your views on Harry Kane after his eyelash got pulled and he went to the ground?
I thought it was pathetic.
Yeah.
I really did. Absolutely pathetic. And here we have the captain of England, captain of Spurs, and he takes a dive like that. Can you imagine Bobby Moore doing anything like that? It just wouldn't happen. And I think that Harry Kane has got to look in the mirror and get himself sorted out. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
And with all these people that do all these stupid things, like go down like a felled tree in Kielder Forest, there's always a delayed action. When you think about it, a hand comes up vaguely near the face, and 5 seconds later, it goes down like a bag of cement. And you think, well, if you'd taken that on your whiskers, you would have gone down quicker than that. It was embarrassing because I'm not saying what the guy did wasn't a red card, but the reaction was absolutely flipping ludicrous. And what nobody's commented on is before all the kerfuffle got out of hand, Harry was pulling the Everton bloke around by the shirt, which enraged the Everton bloke, who then put his hand in his face and, silly, you've got no chance after that. But Harry was dangling him by the front of his shirt before that, which could have been a yellow card for Harry if he hadn't suddenly decided to do his poleaxed routine. But it's sad to see.
But I wish referees would would take action when they see somebody feigning the drop like Harry did, then they should yellow card them.
Yeah,
the fairest thing would have been the red card the Everton bloke and then yellow card
to Harry Kane. Yeah. Because if Harry Kane hadn't done what he did, the fella he probably wouldn't have got sent off.
Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't allow yourself to be provoked, but he was provoked, and Harry did provoke him. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Yep, no doubt about it. Question from Malcolm and John from Tom Dixon. Who do you think will get relegated from the Premier League this season? It is so tight, lads.
Well, on what I saw last night, West Ham, I thought they were absolutely shocking. And I was seeing in the face of David Moyes that sort of haunted look of, what the hell do I do now? And he looked as if he was too perplexed to actually be able to make decisions and send instruction on.
You're right. I mean, you're right. And, first and foremost, I've got to say, boys, the wonderful thing I love about this question is that I don't care monkeys who goes down, because I've cared a monkeys for 15 years of who goes down, because we've been down there in the mix, and I've worked it out every week. I right now, sitting here, I don't know exactly what the situation's down at the bottom, because I'm too concerned about the Champions League.
Isn't that great, though, John? Isn't that great? Just to give you an idea, Southampton are rock bottom on 23, but
they'll go down.
Leicester's on 25, and Bournemouth on 27. That's your bottom three. But that 27 points that Bournemouth have got takes you up to 12th place, which is where Crystal Palace reside, on 30 points. So you've got Palace, Leeds, Wolves, West Ham, Everton, Forest, Bournemouth, Leicester and Southampton could all go down, because everybody bar West Ham have played 29 games now.
I mean, yes, it's incredible. You know what I'm delighted about? Because you see the way that when you're near the bottom, everybody panic. I'm talking about boards. Boards panic. And what do? They sack the manager, which is why Moyes must be afraid, because the knee-jerk situation after you lose 5 at home is that you get the sack. And somebody said, will he get the sack? And you can't sack him. You've got to stay with him. And somebody else said, well, you can't afford not to sack him. But being flippant, what I'm delighted about is, if you look at the current trend, it would appear for some reason that if you sack your manager, you turn the clock back. I mean, Crystal Palace sacked the manager, and the point, Roy Hodgson, until the end of the season, who's the old manager that they just sacked yesterday. So today, they appoint him. They sacked him yesterday. They appoint him today. Now, Chelsea, at mid-table, sack their manager, and what do? They appoint Frank Lampard, who they just sacked before. So he suddenly gets a job. Now, what worries me, guys, is if Eddie Howe went down with the lurgy, or went off to manage Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or England, would we go back and re-employ Steve Bruce?
Oh, God. I wondered where you were going with that.
Well, that's the punchline, boys.
Unbelievable, Jeff. Absolutely brilliant. Okay.
The answer is no, John.
The answer is no, yeah. I actually left me speechless there, which is very rare. I've got to show you this. Alan Hudson sent this up via a third party as well. It must have been you must have sent that down to him, Malcolm, but he's asking after you anyway through an intermediary. We mentioned him the other week. I had a photograph up on the channel there, and he just said, wish you all the best, Malcolm. So I just thought I'd pass that on.
Oh, lovely.
We do lookalikes on a Friday as well, John, and we had a lookalike he sent in a view this week, John, which I've featured on the show.
Frightening. This is frightening now. But
are you ready, Malcolm? Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
John Gibson leads all his mates on a Viking reenactment weekend on Holy Island.
Well, to be truthful, I didn't know a photographer was there at the time.
Stephen Kennedy, you're on John's naughty list now. You're not getting a Christmas card or anything, but that's a classic. That like
that's what I looked like when our 5th goal went in last night.
Yes. I just want to talk about the changing facilities and the training ground before we move on to this weekend's game. And just a reminder of what it was like under Mike Ashley. And we've had a couple of photographs released now of what it looks like now. Wow. I mean, we've seen the internals on some of the stuff that Newcastle have done. That looks like a different place, Malcolm.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally different place and different atmosphere as well. But they haven't finished. They're nowhere near finished. They're basically going to recreate the whole place, and it will be absolutely top notch. I look at these training grounds that they have, and I think, my word. John, you remember when we used to? It was up at Benwell,
yes.
And it was the old Benwell cricket ground.
That's right.
And we had it was the old cricket pavilion, dressing room either side with a bar in the middle.
It was Vickers Armstrong's ground, Malcolm. It was in Benwell. It was Vickers Armstrong's old cricket ground. And if I remember, one day I went up there to see the players after training, and I walked in that room in the middle, that you've just been talking about.
Yes.
And there was a bucket in the corner, and I looked up, and there was a little hole in the roof, and the drips of the rain were falling in the bucket. Our answer to
right.
Great palaces of the world was to put a bucket
John, in the window. In the window of the dressing room that I got changed in, there were a couple of panes of glass missing, and so in the winter when it was windy, and it always was windy there.
Yeah, it was.
The icy wind used to blow into the dressing room, and you're coming out of a hot bath, and you've got this icy blast hitting you.
I used to wonder how you were so quick, Malcolm, and now I know because you were trying to get the hell out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it didn't matter how much we pleaded with the board of directors to get something done about it, bring it up into the 20th century, but no, and they weren't interested at all. And I always got the feeling that Joe Harvey was just banging his head against the brick wall.
Totally. Absolutely, totally. But thankfully, times have moved on. But quite amazing, Malcolm. They hadn't moved on much under Ashley until we got the new owners.
That's right. But the major difference is that the Premier League, they demand certain standards. And their standards are very, very high, and of course, you're affected if you're affected by the grading. There's three levels of grade, and they look carefully at all of your facilities, the standards of the facilities, and if they're not good enough, you get downgraded. Newcastle got downgraded under Mike Ashley.
Yep.
From grade A down to grade C.
I mean, if we go back far enough, guys, before Malcolm come and joined us at Newcastle, when I first covered Newcastle in 65, 66, when I first come back from London and covered Newcastle, I used to go out on a Friday morning, bearing in mind the game was on a Saturday, Steve. I'd go out on a Friday morning and the Newcastle first team would be playing five-a-side on the car park. They were tackling each other and falling down on the car park, on the tarmac. Can you believe that was a way? Can you imagine today with all the superstars that's around, them tackling each other on the car park? Like, I mean, it's the day before a game, by the way.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it was crazy, but times change and luckily they do. But as I say, for us, we are just getting dragged out of the Stone Age now. Because to Mike Ashley, that was just a waste of money. There was nothing in it for him to have better training facilities. What's in it, of course, is that if you're going to go into the Champions League and you're going to sign all the superstars that you need to sign, and you're going to keep the superstars you've got, like Bruno, you've got to have top-notch facilities, not just a top-notch wage, but top-notch facilities. They want to train properly, and they need the surroundings. You've got to have the surroundings to go with it. And we're still playing catch-up. Of course we are, because we're still trying to cover from the Ashley era. But staggering how much it's all going in the right direction. As you say, at the moment, I'm not going to sleep because I'm scared to go to sleep in case I wake up the next day and I'm back with Ashley.
Okay, Newcastle United travel to Brentford. They're staying down in London after last night's win at West Ham, and they have a 3 o'clock, good old 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, and not televised. All 1,730 away tickets have been sold. No team news really, and it's one of those funny weekends now where with Newcastle not being at St James's Park, they won't be having a press conference beforehand. They've done a little one after the game last night, but there'll be no massive updates from the football club going into this game. So we'll have to wait and see who has come through unscathed. Brentford lost 1-0 away to Manchester United, of course, last night. Ivan Toney went into that game on 9 yellow cards, but he avoided getting his 10th, so he will be fit and ready to face Newcastle on Saturday. And as for the referee, it's Chris Kavanagh. This is his first appointment of a Newcastle game this season, VAR, which we're all thankful for after last night.
Absolutely.
Is Darren England. So this, every game's a big game now, Mal, as it was last season when Newcastle United were trying to get out of the relegation zone and, in that dogfight. Now it's a more satisfactory one for us, where we're at the top end of the table, looking to get a Champions League place. I never thought.
Yes, absolutely.
12 months later.
And I think that if we were to make the lesser European competition, I think everybody would be thoroughly disappointed.
Yeah, we would be.
That the Champions League, it is the big time stuff, and that's where we feel we ought to be now. And why not? It's all so exciting for all of us, and I feel that it is absolutely possible for us to get into that competition. This is going to be a difficult one on Saturday, though. I have to say that I cannot believe, having been born in West London, Brentford's sort of 3 or 4 miles up the road from where I was born, and they were just the perennial middle of the table third division side, and it was almost as if they booked that spot at the beginning of the season, and they just occupied it for the whole of it every year. And now what they're actually doing I think is absolutely phenomenal, what they've achieved there. But Newcastle, they gave them a walloping at home. What we need to do is stack up the double wins through the season, home and away, and we need to really seriously get into it. I think the players, just watching them over the last 3 or 4 games, I think that they've really got the bit between their teeth with regards to getting into Europe. I really do. I think they're now so conscious that they're just a few games away from bringing the Champions League to Newcastle. Great stuff, wonderful, and they're up for it. I think we can tell, and but this isn't going to be easy. this game at Brentford. It's not going to be easy at all. Albeit, I think the back four they've got themselves well and truly back on form. So I personally think that Newcastle have every chance of winning this game, but it will not be easy for them to do so. They've got to be at the top of their form.
Okay, changes to the team. Are we expecting to see some, Malcolm? Do you think?
Well,
I changed it the other night.
Right, I saw a comment. Who would I? A listener was asking who would I. How would I play Isak and Wilson, and who would I play on the Saturday? I think what Eddie Howe is doing, considering the hamstring problem that Wilson has, I think that he is talking to Wilson, talking to the physios, and he's saying, right, are you absolutely right? And if so, he will play Wilson. He'll start him. And it might well be that Wilson, having started the game last night, that he just finds himself a bit stiff in the thigh. And so Isak could well start. And I think that Eddie Howe is shrewdly balancing it up. If Wilson is smack on form, he goes in the side, plays for an hour, and I'll get Isak on. And that's the way Eddie Howe will look at it. But if Wilson if he senses or feels the hamstring isn't quite right, then I think that Isak will start and Wilson will look to come on later in the game.
Okay, John, what about you? What's your thoughts? Changes tomorrow night?
Interesting, because you can't second guess Eddie Howe. It's almost impossible to do that. Luckily, if you take the starting 11 and you take the three main ones that come on, I'm not thinking of Manquillo late on or Target late on, but you think of Willock and who else come on? Isak. Then you can look at the side and Gordon, of course. Any of those 11, 12, 13, 14 can start and the side isn't weakened. You can actually start them and the side isn't weakened. My concern remains, and it's so slight it's untrue, remains, can Burn keep going? That's my slight thing. Can Burn keep going? Or because I do think in two stupendous performances against Manchester United and against West Ham, he had his hands full and he was playing to the end of his tether, if you know what I mean. He was having to play right up to his maximum to stay in the game. And he did it magnificently against Manchester United when it looked as if Anthony might have his number early on. I think he found Bone hard for the whole of the match the other night. I just hope that because his heart's so big, because he cares so much, because he's defensively excellent. Although when you're out there and you've got a quick winner, it doesn't matter how defensively excellent you are, the quickness is going to beat you at some stage. So my slight concerns there. I don't think that he'll be taken out because Eddie Howe, whatever changes he makes, boys, have you noticed that in the Premier League, not in the FA Cup, in the Premier League, he never changes the back four. Back four is the back four is the back four is the back four. He never changes it. He might change the midfield a bit. He might change the forwards a bit, but he doesn't change the back four. So, on changes, on the match, interesting. First and foremost, on the game, what a way to start 3 away games on the bounce by winning 5-1. I mean, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Do you want anything better than that? You can't get anything better than that. That was a way to set up 3 away games. Now, if you look, I've kept trumpeting about we've only lost 3 games all season out of 28, etc., etc. Away from home, we've only lost 2 games at Liverpool and Manchester City. We've only lost 2 games, and Arsenal is the only other side that's lost as few as us. Everybody else lost 4, 5, 6. If you go to Liverpool, I think it's 9 away games. We have the best away record as well. And when we look at the figures, which I did before I come on here, we've only lost 1 of our last 11 away games in the league, and that was at Man City. Now, that's a phenomenal record,
Yeah.
That is a phenomenal record. And I couldn't agree more with Malcolm that this is a different ballgame, mine, Brentford to West Ham. They're a much better side, Brentford, especially at their ground. You see, West Ham, for me, are flaky, and their fans are ready to turn because they don't like the style of football Moyes plays, and they don't like being in the relegation fight, having been 7 and 8 the last 2 seasons. Brentford fans are 600% behind Frank and the team. The team play with a vibrancy and a high press, the same as we do, and that ground is tight, and all the fans will be baying for them. So it is hugely a different game, and that's why I'm saying Newcastle will win.
Prediction?
Yeah.
They'll win.
I'll take Newcastle to win again, but it will be tight and it will be hard, and people can't afford to make mistakes.
It could easily be a draw if we're on all cylinders. It could easily be a draw for one on all cylinders. I just think we will, and I think if we do win, it will show how hard it was because it'll be by a goal.
Yes, I agree, John. Yeah, I'm going to take Newcastle to keep a clean sheet, but and they'll win 1-0.
I'm going 2-0, guys. I think Newcastle will continue this great run. 2-0. I think the tougher game is Villa. I've got to be honest. And I said I would have settled. I thought I would have settled for two wins this week, a win at the weekend, and then hopefully a draw at Villa. But the way we're going, you just never know, lads. But 2-0 for me. Yeah, Derek's going for the same as well. As always, an absolute pleasure to share the screen with you two legends. And let's hope next week we are smiling next week. Coming off the back of another 3 points. Have a good weekend.
Yes, indeed.
Happy Easter.
Enjoy the weekend of sport, eh?
Happy Easter, especially when you win at Brentford. Take care, boys.
Yeah.